You are watching A News. I'm Leila Massimova. Here's the top stories for today. US President Donald Trump vows more tariffs after EU and Canada strike back. International Criminal Court takes Philippines' Duterte into custody to face murder charges for drug war killings. Global Baku Forum starts in Azerbaijan today, gathering global leaders, including current and former heads of state. The US is once again ramping up its trade war, with President Donald Trump imposing new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, while the administration argues the move will protect American manufacturers. It has sparked global backlash and market turbulence. Meanwhile, concerns grow over rising costs for businesses and consumers. Our Obi Shabandar reports from Washington.
President Donald Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imported into the United States on Wednesday. The president said that his tariff policy is meant to protect U.S. manufacturing against what he says are unfair European trade practices that put American companies at a severe disadvantage. Responding to questions in the White House that his tariffs are contributing to market volatility and growing business concerns, President Trump acknowledged that tariffs will sometimes cause a, quote, disturbance, but that ultimately he believed that markets will eventually soar. President Trump said that his recent meetings with American business leaders indicated broad support for his economic and trade policies. He also brushed aside criticisms that his tariff policies, some of which he has subsequently delayed, were inconsistent. Trump said that he was being flexible with his tariff implementation due to supply chain consideration for American auto manufacturers. Regarding the steep drop in the stock market this week, President Trump responded to reporters that, quote, "You can't really watch the stock market." The tariffs on steel and aluminum mark the first time in Trump's second term that a set of tariffs have been applied to all countries. The tariffs may raise prices on key ingredients for American manufacturers, which could be passed on to consumers. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has said that tariffs scheduled to go into effect on April 2nd will remain until Mexico and Canada demonstrate that they have taken significant action in preventing the smuggling of the deadly drug fentanyl into the United States. For the time being, despite the market downturn, the Trump administration believes that the benefits of these hefty tariffs will in the long term outweigh any incurred cost. I'm Ubi Shabander, A News, Washington, D.C.
Canada has announced its response to the tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump. Starting from today, a $29.8 billion Canadian dollar tariff will be implemented. Authorities say the new measures are aimed at protecting the Canadian economy and strengthening the international fight against what it says is the unfair trade actions of the United States.
Morning, everyone.
Canada has promptly responded to the 25% tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump on steel and aluminium products, which began on Wednesday. Ottawa says that from today it will implement retaliatory 25% tax hikes worth nearly 30 billion Canadian dollars on American goods such as steel, computers and sports equipment.
March 13th, 2025. 25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States. This includes steel products worth $12.6 billion and aluminum products worth $3 billion, as well as additional imported U.S. goods worth $14.2 billion for a total of $29.8 billion. The list of additional products affected by counter tariffs includes computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products as examples. These tariffs are in addition to Canada's 25% counter tariffs on $30 billion of imports from the United States in response to U.S. tariffs put in place on March 4th.
The tension in the trade dispute has increased as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau prepares to hand over power to the newly elected leader, Mark Carney, later this week.
We didn't ask for this fight.
The only constant in this unjustified and unjustifiable trade war seems to be President Trump's talks of annexing our country through economic coercion. Yesterday, he called our border a fictional line and repeated his disrespectful 51st state rhetoric. Well, Canadians have made it very clear that we will not back down and we will not give in to this coercion.
Canada has strongly criticised the tariffs imposed by the US and declared that the fight against such unfair trade measures will be strengthened on an international level. However, Trump defends his tariff hikes, which have sparked unrest around the world.
US President Donald Trump has blasted the European Union for unfair trade practices, pledging to impose reciprocal tariffs on European goods. His remarks come amid growing tensions following the enforcement of new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports.
US President Donald Trump sharply criticised the European Union during a meeting with Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin in the Oval Office. He accuses the EU of unfair trade practices and mistreating America for years. Trump declared plans to impose reciprocal tariffs, meaning any tariffs the EU imposes on, the US will be matched by similar charges on European goods.
And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. Nobody can complain about that. Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what it is. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them.
The remarks came after Trump enforced tariffs on steel and aluminium imports, which prompted retaliation from the EU. Trump expressed his desire to rebuild US manufacturing.
We're going to know very soon. I'll always have flexibility, but there will be very little flexibility once we start. April 2nd is going to be a very big day for the United States of America. The United States of America is going to take back a lot of what was stolen from it by other countries and by, frankly, incompetent U.S. leadership. Yeah.
The American president also blamed previous US leadership for allowing Ireland to attract US pharmaceutical companies through tax policies.
We can, but I hope
it's a two-way.
Prime Minister Martin noted Ireland's investments in the US, such as aircraft purchases from Boeing. However, Trump remained focused on leveling the trade playing field, citing the absence of American cars in Europe as another example.
As the United Nations marks its 80th anniversary, Secretary General Antonio Guterres is pushing for cost-cutting measures to tackle a growing financial crisis. He says this is not about politics, but about keeping the UN running efficiently.
The United Nations is seeking ways to improve efficiency and cut costs as it turns 80 this year amid a cash crisis. With the UN facing a 7th consecutive year of financial strain, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is setting up a task force to streamline operations and ensure resources are used effectively. He made it clear that this initiative is not linked to US President Donald Trump's government efficiency efforts, but is part of an ongoing process within the UN.
This is a continuation and an intensification of a work that we have always been doing.
The financial challenge is significant. The UN's regular budget for 2025 is $3.7 billion, but not all member states pay on time. The US owes $1.5 billion in arrears, and China has delayed its payments by 6 months. With only 75 countries paying their dues in full so far, the UN has been forced to cut spending by 20% and freeze hiring.
Budgets at the United Nations are not just numbers on a balance sheet. They are a matter of life and death for millions around the world. We must ensure value for money while advancing shared values.
Guterres says reforms are crucial as global challenges grow and the UN must adapt to continue its mission effectively.
Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte is expected to appear before the judge at the International Criminal Court in The Hague in the coming days. It's after his arrest in Manila on murder charges linked to his controversial war on drugs.
The former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte was taken into custody by the International Criminal Court in The Hague on Wednesday. It's after his arrest in Manila on murder charges linked to his war on drugs, in which thousands of purported dealers and users were killed. The 79-year-old was arrested for charges of murder as a crime against humanity. He's expected to make an initial court appearance before an ICC judge in the Netherlands in the coming days. The court's arrest warrant accuses Duterte of orchestrating a brutal anti-drug campaign during his presidency from 2016 to 2022. The document alleges that he created, funded, and armed death squads responsible for extrajudicial killings of suspected drug users and dealers. Duterte's war on drugs was one of the defining policies of his administration, drawing sharp condemnation from human rights groups and world leaders. The crackdown reportedly led to thousands of deaths, with critics accusing Duterte's government of widespread human rights violations. Pro-Duterte supporters gathered outside the prison before his arrival. Rights groups and families of the victims hailed his arrest. Legal experts suggest that if the case moves forward, Duterte could become the first former Asian head of state to stand trial at the ICC.
Turkey says it is ready to host any potential peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan spoke at a joint press conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Ankara, saying he's consistently called for just a peace.
Turkey says it's ready to support a peace process between Russia and Ukraine, including hosting potential negotiations. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made the comment during a joint press conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Ankara on Wednesday. Erdogan says he welcomes Ukraine's acceptance of a 30-day ceasefire in its ongoing conflict with Russia. He says he hopes Moscow would respond constructively.
If recent developments pave the way for Russia and Ukraine to return to the negotiating table, Turkey is prepared to offer its full support. This region has endured enough conflict and war. We desire peace and are determined to work towards that goal.
At the same time, Erdogan called for Turkey's full membership in the European Union as a way of increasing the bloc's strength. He also highlighted the importance of Turkey and Poland as strategic NATO allies, with both countries positioned on NATO's eastern and southern flanks. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also proposed that Turkey take an active role in initiating peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Tusk says he welcomed the diplomatic efforts held in Saudi Arabia earlier in the week.
World leaders, including current and former heads of state, have gathered in Azerbaijan for the Global Forum. The over 400 guests in attendance, the event serves as a platform to address some of the most pressing global challenges. Our Guy Shaw reports from the venue.
Well, a very good afternoon from the Global Baku Forum. I'm here at Gulistan Palace, where just a few hours ago, President Aliyev of Azerbaijan gave the opening address, marking the official start of the event. 400 distinguished political figures, including at least 50 current and former presidents and prime ministers, are all here in Baku for discussions covering some of the most pressing issues on the planet, including multilateral diplomacy in a multipolar world, the future of the UN Charter, post-conflict reconstruction, and the critical role that so-called middle powers can play in shaping the new world order. Well, President Aliyev welcomed distinguished delegates and guests this morning in the opening session. He spoke of the success of COP29, the legacy of the Baku breakthrough, highlighting the importance of green energy to the country, and more widely, he spoke of the importance of Azerbaijan's commitment and responsibility to support its neighbours in Europe with energy security. The president also went on to mention what he described as a coordinated fake news campaign during COP29, characterizing Azerbaijan as a petrostate, despite Azerbaijan being responsible for just 0.1% of global gas emissions. President Aliyev specifically criticized the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the office itself of the French President Emmanuel Macron. He also reasserted his previous statement that the President of France had personally been involved in campaigning against Azerbaijan. Well, Azerbaijan's president then went on to speak poignantly of the importance of not forgetting the suffering of people due to the Armenian occupation of Karabakh. He expressed that sometimes, as he put it, you have to use force to achieve justice and secure peace. He also described the liberation as a demonstration of international justice. The president also underlined the importance of moving forward and working towards peace right across the region. Well, turning to President Trump, President Aliyev wished the new US administration success in the task he described as drying out the swamp of corruption. He made particular reference to the organization USAID and its support for offending Armenian groups around the world. He also drew a clear line of distinction between past and present US presidents in the area of bilateral relations between America and Azerbaijan. He referred to conflicts in both Iraq and Afghanistan, saying when they needed us, we were with them. But then made the point that the imposition of sanctions by the US afterwards had badly damaged the relationship. President Aliyev spoke hopefully, though, of the opportunity to rebuild a positive relationship with the new President Trump administration. Now, we also heard today from other distinguished speakers, including the President of Albania, Bayram Begay. President Begay praised the friendly relationship between the two countries and commended the organisers, the NGIC, for bringing different perspectives together and advancing the cause of peace and global stability. He went on to champion the power of cooperation and dialogue to achieve global security and stability around the world. The chairwoman of the President of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Shelka Cijanovic, also spoke powerfully against prevailing attitudes of colonialism. She said, when discussing democracy and the new world, Bosnia and Herzegovina is seen as a colony and the only colony. She went on to explain that it's not the European Union or the United States as country, but the country of three nations. She said, we can resolve our own problems and develop through mutual dialogue. Well, the chairwoman also praised the Global Baku Forum by saying this forum serves as a platform for us to voice our challenges. Well, let's now take a look ahead at the themes, topics and discussions that are going to be coming up for these leaders to really get their teeth into both this evening and over the next few days. Well, as expected, COP29 is on the agenda, but this is very much a forward-looking discussion beyond the Baku breakthrough, with teams from both Azerbaijan and Brazil examining how to maintain momentum and accelerate this implementation of the climate finance commitments in the lead-up to COP30 in Belém. Well, the future of Europe will also be a hot topic for discussion. What role can countries outside the EU play when it comes to tackling stagnating economic growth in the Eurozone, bolstering energy security? Plus, how can Europe effectively manage this rethink on defence spending promoted by a dramatic shift in foreign policy from US President Donald Trump? And seasoned world leaders and diplomats are the only voices being heard here at the forum. One of the most anticipated sessions will be a panel called Let the Youth Speak, We Listen, a session specifically dedicated to amplifying the perspectives of younger people. So, and not on the agenda. A diverse and distinguished delegation with a great deal to discuss. So much interesting content for us to get stuck into. And A News will be with you, keeping you updated at every stage here at the Global Baku Forum.
As global transaction-based approach gain popularity, the changing role of the European Union as its evolving landscape is becoming increasingly significant. On the sidelines of Global Baku Forum, a former European Council leader, Charles Mitchell, shares insight in an inclusive interview to A News on the EU's economic, security and strategic partnership views, emphasizing the growing importance of regional organizations in conflict prevention, economic development and global influence.
Your Excellency, a more transactional approach is becoming growingly popular among the countries across the globe. What role do you see for the EU on this spectrum?
I think that the EU has an important role to play because the EU has to develop its economy. It's also to develop its capabilities in the field of security and defense to have more influence, a more positive influence. But I think that what is important on the EU side is to build good and strategic partnerships. This is what we need to develop in the future. And when I was in charge as President of the European Council, I tried to do my best to connect the European Union on other parts of the world. I've also the impression that in the future, regional organizations will have a more prominent role to play. Because on the one hand, those regional organizations, they can help for more convergence, also help to play a more active role to prevent conflicts and to solve conflicts and to provide solutions. On the one hand, they can also help in the field of prosperity, economic development, shared investments. And I think that in the future, for a more efficient multilateralism, for the benefit of a multipolar world, we need more effective regional organizations.
In Iran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has ruled out negotiations with the United States, stating that nuclear talks will not lead to the lifting of sanctions, but will, in fact, intensify them. His remarks come amid ongoing discussions within Tehran on the possibility of diplomatic engagement with Washington.
Iran rejects the notion that discussions on its nuclear program with the United States could yield any positive outcomes. It's after Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei received a letter from U.S. President Donald Trump reportedly proposing talks which would stop the country acquiring nuclear weapons. Speaking at an annual meeting with university students in Tehran, he addressed the concerns surrounding the impact of potential negotiations with Washington on Iran's economic situation.
I want to say that if the goal of negotiation is to lift sanctions, negotiating with this US government will not lift sanctions. It will tighten the knot of the sanctions, it will increase the pressure. Negotiating with this government will increase the pressure.
10 years ago, a deal was reached between 6 countries to limit nuclear activities and allow inspections from the International Atomic Energy Agency. However, Trump pulled America out of the deal in 2018, installing crippling economic sanctions. Iran responded by breaching the terms of the accord.
Armenia is making major moves to strengthen its military, ramping up arms purchases from India and France. A new report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute highlights India's growing role in global arms trade, with Armenia among its top buyers. Here is more on the story.
Armenia has significantly ramped up its military procurement, spending billions on advanced weaponry from India and France. According to a new report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, India's share of global arms imports fell to 8.3% in 2020-24, yet it remains a key player in the global arms trade. At the same time, India has strengthened its defense exports, with the top 3 buyers in 2023 to 2024 being the United States, France, and Armenia. In the fall of last year, reports emerged that India had begun delivering its first batch of Akash surface-to-air missile systems to Armenia. According to the New Indian Express, citing Bharat Electronics Limited, Armenia became the first foreign country to purchase the Akash missile system. The deal, signed in 2022, includes 15 Akash missile systems, valued at approximately $710 million. The Akash system is designed to target fighter jets, cruise missiles, air-to-ground missiles, drones, and other aerial threats within a range of up to 25 kilometers. Meanwhile, France has also stepped up arms deliveries to Armenia, supplying Caesar 155mm self-propelled artillery systems, anti-tank missile systems, and air-to-air missiles. Armenia's military has received dozens of R-511 and R-530 missiles, 30 Erix anti-tank missiles, German-made DM-32 grenade launchers, and Panzerfaust 3 anti-tank systems. Additionally, Armenia has acquired 500 French-made Apilus rocket launchers and 50 US-made BGM-71 Tau anti-tank missile systems. These large-scale arms acquisitions reflect Armenia's efforts to modernize its military amid ongoing regional security challenges.
Major clashes occurred between retirees and Argentine security forces in Buenos Aires during protests against President Javier Milei's pension cuts.
Police used water cannons and rubber bullets in Argentina to disperse thousands of protesters in Buenos Aires against President Javier Milei's pension cuts. Demonstrators included retirees and young groups who gathered outside Congress on Wednesday, demanding better pensions and restored benefits. Authorities say, surprisingly, some of the groups included fans from Boca Juniors and racing from various soccer teams. Previous protests left several elderly people injured. Since taking office in late 2023, Milei has slashed pensions as part of his economic reforms, which the opposition say harmed the most vulnerable. So far, authorities have not confirmed the number of injuries or arrests.
Bolivians are waiting for hours in some cases just to fill up their vehicles. The continuing severe fuel shortage and economic crisis is leading to long lines at the petrol pumps and growing frustration among drivers. The government says it has introduced new measures to boost fuel imports.
Bolivians continue to struggle to get fuel as long lines of vehicles form at gas stations amid a severe shortage. The government says it's introduced measures aimed at revitalizing the country's private energy market and overcoming the extended fuel shortage that has paralyzed parts of the economy. The incentives include expediting import permit approvals and reducing taxes on imported fuel supplies. However, footage from Santa Cruz on Tuesday and Wednesday showed cars and trucks waiting for hours, some overnight.
I lack fuel to transport the load. I've been queuing since last night. I don't know what will happen with this government. Everything is a problem. We can't move with the load because we lack fuel. And how are we going to work in this field?
Years of dwindling exports of natural gas has meant the country now relies on imports. The consequence of this means Bolivia battles a dangerous slide in its foreign currency reserves.
In 2015, Bolivia exported 80% of its production, which was 60 million cubic meters per day. We are producing 27 million cubic meters per day and exporting 51%. So, 51% is the one that receives foreign currency at the international price because they are exporting it to Brazil. But the other half that goes to the domestic market receives Bolivianos, and it is also a subsidized price at $1 a million BTUs. It is 1/6 of the export price.
The country has relied on subsidized hydrocarbons since the 1990s, a policy that experts say has drained the country's international currency reserves and created market distortions. However, some analysts see the crisis as a chance for reform, calling for aid removal.
SpaceX and NASA have delayed the launch of a replacement crew to the International Space Station until Friday. It is after a technical issue with the Falcon 9 rocket in Florida. Engineers say there was a problem with the hydraulic system used for releasing the support arms, and because of the high winds and the flight paths of the Dragon aircraft. The journey was sending a new crew of 4 to replace astronauts Butch Wilmer and Suni Williams. They've been stuck in space for 9 months after a trip on Boeing's flight to Starliner. The inside of a Herculaneum, delicate and ancient scroll unseen for nearly 2,000 years, has been revealed using artificial intelligence. It could potentially reveal new insights into ancient philosophical writing. Scientists virtually unrolled the fragile papyrus, uncovering Greek texts believed to be linked to Epicurean thought.
Unseen for nearly 2,000 years, this fragile piece of papyrus could reveal brand new ancient philosophical writings. Scientists have used artificial intelligence to discover the contents of this Herculaneum scroll that was buried by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. It's so delicate that it would fall apart if it was to be unraveled, so scientists used high-resolution X-ray scans and AI to detect the faint ink and open it virtually.
The technical methods, and in particular the machine learning and AI that we use, at this stage aren't concerned with the text. So these methods focus on the images, and they are in fact looking really, really closely at the surface of these scrolls. So we've zoomed in essentially with an X-ray microscope is how you can think of this. And we're just looking at very, very detailed structures on the surface and identifying where there's ink.
It's one of 3 that are housed at Oxford's Bodleian Libraries in the UK, and work is ongoing to improve software methods to read the entirety of the scrolls. One of the first words is written in ancient Greek. At the time, literature was heavily engaged with philosophy, especially Epicureanism. This breakthrough marks a major step in deciphering the ancient scrolls without damaging them. Researchers continue to analyze the text, which could reshape our understanding of ancient literature and mind.
Thanks for joining us. Keep watching A News for the latest, and we'll be back before you know it.